Hey everyone, it's Andy with the Wedding Biz. So before I announce today's special guest, I'm so excited to say that in less than a month, I'm going to be going with my business partner to Las Vegas, not to gamble, but to see some of the greatest entertainment in the world. I mean, have you heard yet about the new venue called the Sphere? It's supposed to have the most amazing sound and visual entertainment around, and the band U2 is going to be performing when we're there, so we're going to check it out. We're also going to go back to the Sphere a couple days later to see the documentary Planet Earth, which at the Sphere is supposed to be just a crazy, absolutely incredible experience. But the main point of our upcoming trip is twofold. First, it's to have some outrageous fun with my business partner. And we take about 2 or 3 trips a year to get away from business and to connect, which I think is just so critical for any business partnership. And also to be inspired by the latest advances in the entertainment field and just to be inspired, period. I mean, it's just so much fun when I get together with him and we just hang. We come up with so many ideas. I mean, of course we do some business, but the idea is to just, get out of our usual environment and get a different perspective. I mean, I can't recommend that enough for everybody. Anyway, if you missed last week's episode, it was a revisit of my first interview with the amazing photographer out of France, Greg Fink. And today's guest, Bob Conti, a principal member and business partner of Ed Libby and Company events. For over 20 years, Bob has made a name for himself in the event industry by designing and producing milestone celebrations in the luxury market. Bob is also a popular speaker, having spoken at Engaged Summits, Intrigued Experience, the special event, and has traveled to India as part of the Dreammaker Summit. So enjoy this conversation with Bob Conti. Hey, Bob, good to have you on the show. You just got back from Engaged in Paris.
I did. Thanks, Andy. It's great to talk to you. Yeah, I did Engage in Paris. It was fantastic. Had the best time ever.
Yeah, those are always great conferences. So, when I did some research on you, Bob, I found that you used to be an executive in visual merchandising. Do I have that right?
Yeah, that's it. I started, I guess now it's 28, 29 years ago that was.
Yeah.
And that's actually how I met my wife, and through my wife is how I met Ed Libby. So,
but what was visual merchandising like for what kind of company? What does that mean?
So it was like Federated Department Stores. So it was like Macy's. And we would do all the visual displays, the window displays, we would do the fancy beds that you'd see in the home department and the dining room tables that you'd see in the China department. And, of course, fashion.
Yeah. Interesting. So how did you make the transition into the event industry?
Well, like I said, that's actually how I met my wife when I was working there. And when I met my wife, her and actually it was her brother went to high school with Ed Libby. And she, we dated for a while. We got engaged and married. And she was like, you should meet this guy. I used to work with him a little bit too. He does all of these great parties locally. He was working for the Giants football team and he was doing some other high profile. And again, this is almost like 30 years ago now. But he was like, you should meet him. And as it turns out, their families actually were close too because they kind of grew up across the street from each other. And so I met him at a party and, he said, you should come help me. And I started helping him on the weekends, helping him do some of our huppahs and, just basically helping him out with his party. And then at a certain point, I just said, you probably can't afford me, but I think I'm going to come to work for you full time because, there was a lot more potential there than there was there was a lot of things going on. Companies were buying out companies, executives were being blended and things. Yeah. And it started there. And then, after a few years, we decided we would partner up.
That's interesting. I'm sure that in this industry, there are a lot of people who are in similar situations where they end up partnering or in some other sense being a part of another event planner, designer, production company versus going out on their own. Had you ever thought of that? I mean, my God, I wish I had someone like yourself working for me for so long, so committed and loyal.
No, everyone asks me that. Like everyone asks me that. And, it's been a long journey. It worked it worked out. I had young kids when I first started with Ed. We were just having our children. I was just buying a house at the time and everything. Everything was local. It was just a good working relationship. I was learning a lot, from Ed and about the business, because I didn't really know, I knew about design but I really didn't know about flowers, which is a big part. So I learned a lot of that. And, it just, our business relationship developed and my career, and it was a good working relation. I balance Ed too. He's like over the top in some ways, and I'm like kind of, I guess, more like steady, and we kind of balanced each other out, and it was just a good working relationship, and it really has always been. So there's no reason to change it.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, it's interesting. I had my own company 100% for like 20 something years. And it was about 5-6 years ago that I decided to partner with someone else who's also in my end of the industry, entertainment. And I wish I had done it sooner. I really do. I mean, the synergy that we have between us is unbelievable. And when you talk about balance with Ed, that's exactly how I feel about my business partner. We are the balance between us is unbelievable. It's really powerful. So I get that. Well, is there an Ed Libby Events kind of a brand that you incorporate into your events? Or, I'm wondering what some of the facets of your own personal signature are, or if there is like a company brand that permeates everything that all of you do.
Well, so Ed Libby Events is actually Ed's name and brand. And again, that's the business brand that we've developed over the years. And it's kind of known for over-the-top luxury, high-end, and things like that. But in the process, and over the years, Ed has, his accounts, I have my accounts. We each have our individual clients. Sometimes the big events, maybe destination events, we work on things together. And he distinguishes himself and his events differently than I do. And I guess that's just kind of our personalities and I guess our style.
How would you identify your style? If you let's say you were meeting someone at a cocktail party who doesn't know anything about this industry, and they find out your position in it and that you produce and design. How is there a way that you can describe kind of the heart of your own personal signature?
I think what I've kind of decided, or not that I've decided, I just kind of feel that at this point, it's not really about my personal style. Certain styles do speak to me more than others, just personally. But I think the best parties are the parties that represent the client's taste, style. And I think bringing that out and representing that for them is always the most successful events.
Yeah, I understand that makes sense. So what is I'm curious about your creative process, Bob. Like, when you're talking to clients, I mean, I assume that, you're getting a lot of information from them, initially. And I guess in terms of this conversation, we'll limit it to weddings, so we'll talk about weddings. But I assume that you have, your initial meetings with the client, get to know them. Do you have a certain favorite way of coming up with your ideas? Like, do they come up in the moment? Is it in the office? Do you sit down at a certain time of day and really work on it? Or is it, you wake up in the middle of the night? How does that part of it go for you?
Again, that's changed over the years, and it's even changed a lot recently, with the internet and Instagram and Pinterest and things like that. You'll be surprised that most of the clients come with a lot of their own ideas already, attached, and they bring that to me, and it's already a start. I find that the more that I get to know them and their style, and that the reason why they pick certain pictures and why they like certain things kind of helps me develop their plan. And then I'm also, as much of a designer as I am, I almost design for function, if that makes sense. what does our space look like? Where are we? What are we doing? Are we moving, from ceremony into cocktails, into dinner? What type of dinner is it? Is it a sit down dinner? What does our floor plan look like? All of those things I kind of start to piece together, and then the ideas seem to take shape from there.
Yeah. Can you tell me a story or two from, perhaps a favorite wedding event that you've done in the past, or perhaps one coming up, in terms of laying out, what it is that sparked the idea and how you then, manifested it?
Well, I know for this purposes, we're talking about weddings, but I think it's also our careers and our business actually started a little bit more towards the bar mitzvah end.
Oh, okay.
Because, just because that was the business that we were getting. Of course, we were doing weddings and but it seems the luxury part or the high end of our business started from doing these great big bar mitzvahs, which, they are a business of their own, or they're there's the kids party and the adult party, and they're themed, right. And they're, and they can get very extravagant.
Oh my God. I did a couple billionaire bar mitzvahs, and I had never seen or been a part of anything like it before.
It's nuts. And the creativity goes wild, and it goes everything from bringing in headliners and the gifting, and it's just crazy, right? So we've been doing that for a long, long time. Now, we've developed what we call legacy clients, meaning, we did the first kid, the second kid, whatever. We had these families. The parents were turning 50 and 60, and, we did all of this, and now they have become our brides that we're doing now. I have one next weekend that I did the 3 kids. I did the first daughter's wedding. I'm doing the second daughter's wedding. It's become, so it's almost like a family situation. You get to know these people over the years, and you develop these family stories.
Yeah. Well, what do you mean by that? I mean, I understand the concept of legacy, legacy clients, but what do you mean by that?
All of the things that they like, where they've gone to camp, where they vacation, their favorite restaurants, their favorite colors. They like wildflowers. They're a little bit more rustic. They're a glam sort of girl, and, they want sparkle, and you just know who they are. And then that, the bar mitzvahs, the parents kind of, and now for the weddings, although the parents are usually still throwing the wedding, the kids are more involved, and it gets, you're joining another new family now to the mix. So the story just continues, and the story develops.
You bring up an interesting point. I hadn't really thought of it, but it rings true, is that I remember, I've been doing this myself for a long time, 30 years, around that time period. And I remember that for the first half of it or more, the parents were hugely involved, especially the couple, someone in the couple, the bride in particular's mother, would be really involved. And nowadays, the couple themselves, at least my experience, is that they're far more involved, and that the parents are less involved in a lot of cases. I don't know if that's the case at the ultra luxe level. I've done some of that. And I see in those cases, the parents are more involved. But on a general basis, it seems that the couple is really now handling it.
Yeah. Again, every case is different. As much as a lot of weddings, it seems like the same. Everyone is different. Maybe the parent is coming in and it says, whatever my daughter wants. That's what she's saying, but she may not really mean that.
Right.
So now you have 3 bosses, we're working with, in 99% of the time, we're working with a party planner, right? Who we have the party planner, we have the parents of the bride, we have the bride, and sometimes, the groom's family or the couple's family, or sometimes the groom's family pays. So every situation is different, but there's a lot of chiefs, there's a lot of opinions, and you kind of have to navigate that as you go along.
What percentage of your work is working with a planner or event producer where you're coming in just to handle design versus handling everything?
Again, 99.9%. In fact, that's one of the things that we've always tried to distinguish ourselves is we are not the party planner. We are not the wedding planner. We are the designer, and we partner with, and we get all of our business, all of our new business, certainly from planners. And so we never want to be perceived as, and we've had clients say, can you please plan our wedding? And, we know you guys for years, and we would just, we don't really feel that we need somebody, and we'll always have them partner with one of our planner friends. So almost all of our events are done. Maybe you'll get a small little dinner party or something like that they won't use a planner, but almost always.
What is the dynamic like, working with a planner or a producer? Like I imagine it's all over the board. I would think that some of them might come to you with some design ideas, or are they bringing you in with the idea that you are really handling 99% of it?
So we are the designer producer on those jobs, and we work in collaboration with the planner, of course, and all different planners have different styles. And interesting enough, it's different in different parts of the country, and now, certainly different parts of the world. Here on the East Coast, it's very natural. We do this all the time. There's a planner and there's a designer. West Coast, they're they kind of do things differently, a little bit differently. Like the planner will act as the designer too, and then hire florists, rental companies, and other vendors to support that. Not exclusively, but so it depends where you are and who you're working with. And so you just need to adapt your style to theirs.
Yeah. I want to make sure that you're aware of two other shows that are on the Wedding Biz Network. First, The Business of Being Creative, hosted by founder and president of The Business of Being Creative, Sean Lowe. Sean's consulting firm is focused on providing practical advice to those in the business of being creative. Tune in every Tuesday to hear a new episode chock full of topics and advice for creative businesses. Also, check out the 2 seasons of Stop and Smell the Roses, hosted by the one and only lifestyle and event design expert, Preston Bailey. Preston speaks with such an honest voice. I know you're going to thoroughly enjoy hearing him on this unique platform. You can find both shows at theweddingbiznetwork.com or on your cell phone's podcast app for both The Business of Being Creative and Stop and Smell the Roses. What are some of the biggest challenges that you have faced? I wonder if there's anything that comes to mind when I say that, something that really big that was so challenging and yet you found a way to overcome it. I love these kinds of stories.
Well, I used to say, the good thing about our business is that we'll always have business, right? People are always going to get married. People are always going to bar and bat mitzvah their children, no matter what, no matter if the economy goes bad, no matter what. And, then we went through things like 9/11 and then 2008 when, the economy really went to hell and no one was booking luxury parties. And now, obviously with the pandemic, we just went through that. So I stopped saying that anymore because I guess anything can happen and you don't really know. Each one of those has been a challenge that we've kind of come through and come out on the other side. So as far as individual challenges, again, because every situation is so tough, sometimes there's challenges, like I said, balancing who's really in charge, I always used to think that the person in charge was the person paying, but that's not necessarily the case either. That can be, and then managing expectations and budgets are always a big, now with Instagram and, everybody's seeing what's going on, on a daily and every weekend, look what this one did at this place on this day and look what this one did. And we're just seeing the pictures. There's no prices attached to any of those things. So when a bride or a planner or somebody comes in and this was a great idea, let's do this. And then you try to make that fit into a budget. Sometimes it can be very challenging.
Yeah. Also, I know that you speak at various conferences, including Engage. What are some of the topics that you talk about?
One of the things I do at Engage on a regular basis is I run what they call the first timer session. And that's anybody who is attending Engage for the first time. They come to a session and we talk about how to get the most out of it. And, they've invested in Engage. They've made a financial investment and a time investment. And we tell them, the best way to get the most out of it and how they should network and things like that. And, try to make it a welcoming environment and welcome into the Engage family. So I really enjoy doing that.
Can I stop right there for a moment?
Sure.
What is maybe the top one or two pieces of advice, the most important, effective that you like to give during to someone who's new to a major conference like that?
The first thing I tell them is, people come in and, they've maybe heard about Engage for however many years and they've seen it posted and they've seen about it. And for whatever reason, they've made the decision to come now. And no matter where they are. So a lot of times they think that they come in and say, oh, I'm a newbie. But some of these newbies are people that I've seen and heard about in the business for the past 20 years. They're like rock stars. They're they have bigger businesses than me. And they're not so they feel intimidated. So that's one of the things I'd like, for whatever reason, this is their first time. They're certainly not a newbie, but there's a reason why they're there and they're in the room with all of those people for a reason, and they should capitalize on that. And I've heard things like they say Engage is very cliquey and it's all the big people kind of stick together but I welcome them. It may be cliquey, but now they're part of that clique and try to make them feel welcomed.
Yeah. I totally get that. And I've spoken to it at numerous conferences. I hadn't spoken at Engage, but I've been to a few, and I understand that feeling, walking into it, that if you're new, there are a lot of people who come, I think, I forget the percentage. It's a big percentage, like 40% or something are repeats, people who come and they know each other. But on the other hand, I think that people are open, very open. And even the bigger speakers of the conference are very open. I think that's kind of part of the culture there, is to be open to talking to anyone who comes up to them. And so I always encourage people who are new to any conference to not hesitate and make themselves known and get involved in conversation. And
well, I make that my mission. That's my mission. So when they come in, and it doesn't matter, who it is, and if they want their picture taken with Mindy Weiss, or if they want to meet, Ed Libby or Morsi, or any of whoever they feel are the accomplished or kind of the big stars in our business, I make sure that they meet them, talk to them, have their picture taken with them, and kind of start a conversation. And everybody's very open to it.
Yeah. Coming back to design, I'm wondering, you've been doing this a long time, and Ed also, what have you seen, Bob, in terms of any kind of changes that might affect the aspect of design, and being able to stay relevant? Because you've been successful a long time. You've been big in this industry for a long time. And oh my God, how it's just gotten more and more saturated. And how do you deal with change? And what have you seen with that in the industry?
It is saturated. There's a lot of people. Again, COVID changed a bunch of things. But, I just, for me personally, I just think staying authentic, I always say it's as simple as nice parties for nice people. If you think about it more than that, it can really, you can really make yourself crazy. If you start looking at, all the new young people and so ridiculously talented people that are coming up, it's all good. And one of the other things I say, there's enough business for everybody, because if there wasn't, we wouldn't all be in business, right?
Right. So
it's all good. And I don't know, I think that's all I really have to say about that. It's just that simple.
Yeah. No, I understand. I mean, I think that's real important to remember is rather than feeling like so competitive and like you got to beat out others, in your vertical, in terms of this portion, whatever portion of the industry that we're in, is that there's still a lot of business out there. It's interesting in entertainment. I used to be an innovator. I remember, back like in the late I would say late 90s and into especially the first half of the 2000s. I mean, I was flying all over the world and I even produced entertainment for major New Year's bashes in Las Vegas and all kinds, and what I've seen come along is there is more, and I think it's in all parts of the industry, certainly in entertainment. There's much more really good entertainment. In my day, in the very beginning, it wasn't that easy and I didn't see that much. But nowadays, oh my God, there's so much more talent out there, and I imagine it's the same in all parts of the event industry. Don't you think?
Oh, I absolutely do. I used to, after you do this for a while, you get to, you think, okay, I've been doing this for a while. I know it all. I've seen it all and everything. And then attending, not only Engage, but some other conferences literally around the world. I've gone and, the people that are doing this, at our level around the world, it actually is a smaller community than we realize. And the stuff that's going on, like, overseas and in terms of entertainment, design, production, building, it's just crazy. And everybody is so open. And I think if there is a trend that's happening, it's collaboration.
Ah, yes. I've heard a lot about that.
Yeah.
Can you say more about that?
It was one of the things I spoke about at Engage. It's, in the past, especially before we started going to these conferences and, before like the internet and Instagram and things like that, everybody used to kind of operate in their own little circles, right? And maybe you knew that this business existed and we all talked, maybe we didn't necessarily talk to each other. We may have talked about each other, but we never really talked to each other. And now everybody is really, planners are working together. Since travel, destination events, and just travel in general has become such a big part of our industry, it's so easy to pick up the phone, call somebody that you've met or that you know of or that's been suggested and just say, hey, I've got this. Can you help me out with this? And everybody is open to that. So planners are working together. Designers are working together. I really do think that the projects are real big. Even hotels are working together. I remember that if you were doing a destination event and they were coming in and you'd have a welcome party or a rehearsal party and then a beach party and then you'd have the wedding and then, maybe you'd have a brunch the day after. The hotels were so big on just capturing all of that business. Not realizing that, the guests are at a destination. Maybe they want to go to the restaurant outside and maybe they want to go, see a hot club that's happening in the resort next door. Now people are open. They understand that giving a good guest experience is about great collaboration.
Yeah, I love that. That has been an interesting, I guess we can call it a trend even, that's been going on. Yeah. For a number of years. Well, Bob, this is great. This is, I'm so glad to finally have you on.
Good. Likewise, Andy. It's been too long.
Yeah, I know, especially since we first met. So I appreciate it. And just thank you for your time.
Sure. Great. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with Bob Conti. Be sure to check out his website, which is edlibby.com. You can find Bob himself on Instagram at Bob_Conti, C-O-N-T-I. And the company's page on Instagram is Ed Libby CO Events. And be sure to check out the show notes with event pics that our guests provided in your cell phone podcast app or at our website of theweddingbiz.com. And next week, I want to mention that we're going to have the wonderful designer out of New York City, Jen Gould, with Jen Gould Events. And finally, be sure to subscribe to The Wedding Biz so that you know when a new episode comes out. And also, I'd really appreciate if you could rate and review the show wherever you get your podcast from. That really helps new people like yourself find the show. And finally, I've got a new website. Check it out at theweddingbiz.com. Take a look at it. And you can also follow me on Instagram at The Wedding Biz. And we'll catch you next week.